Hey everybody. All right, let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do a little music tutorial, music theory. I'm self-taught on guitar for about 2.5 years, and I really don't have much knowledge on music theory, never took any classes on it. This is probably going to be a long video. I might have to string together a couple different video things in an editing program, but I'm going to teach you some of what I know. Hopefully it's going to help you. Most of my videos, I just ramble on and on and on, but as long as you learn something, that's all that matters. I've, as I said, self-taught on guitar for about 2.5 years. Most of what I learned was research or on YouTube, and it's really hard because you spend a lot of time and you don't find consistent info. So I wrote a bunch of this stuff down. I'm going to be reading a lot of it as I explain it to you, but that's okay. Might make my video might make it a little more understandable. I'm writing down. Yeah, I've got this on my front door, so I didn't know how else to do this so that this thing would come out good. All right, as long as it's not leaking on the paint, I don't want to have to repaint this door. These are the notes in the music scale. C, D, E, F, G. Everybody knows this stuff, hopefully. A, D. This is not going to be easy, I can see. I don't have a good way to write all this stuff. So here we go. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Let me make sure that's showing up on the screen. Yeah, that's showing up on the camera. All right, what did I write here? The spacing between notes is done with whole steps and half steps. W for whole and H for half, which is true. The W is also written as a W. I mean, the whole is also written as a W, and the half is also written as a half. So I'm going to show that in a minute. Now, in notes, you also, in the musical scale, you also have sharps and flats. I don't really like flats. Flats are the same thing as sharps, but I just get all confused with the whole thing. I'm starting to get better. What you have now is we have C, we have C sharp. This took a long time for me to understand, so don't expect that you're going to make sense of this right away. You have D, D sharp, E, F. Wow, now I see how hard it was for a teacher to write on a chalkboard. Definitely not easy to do this. F sharp, G, run out of space, G sharp, A sharp, oh no, you can see I'm writing smaller, B, and then we have our C starts over again. Yeah, I know my writing sucks, but I don't really care. As I said, as long as you learn something, that's all that matters. All right, so those are the notes in the musical scale. You have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And in between these notes, you have sharps. In between C and D is a sharp of C. You have between D and E, you get D sharp, you get F sharp between F and G, G sharp between G and A sharp between A and B. Okay, now, you can also call this, this is what I was saying, I really don't like it, it gets kind of confusing, but you can also call, instead of going up where you have C and you go up and it makes it C sharp, you can take D and make it a D flat. So C sharp can also be called D, and this small b is what they use to make it a flat, what they call a flat. So C sharp is D flat, D sharp, D sharp, E flat. And most of the videos that I watch, they don't do this on a board, they just do it on a computer. And like I said, I put all this stuff on type, and then I thought, nobody's going to understand this if I just hold the sheet of paper there and read it out. All right, F sharp, G flat. So these are just different terms for the exact same note, just another way to confuse everybody. G sharp, A flat. And like I said, it's the same note, just a different way to call it, to label it. And A sharp, B flat. Really the only thing that I'm using, I'm learning to convert it in my head now, but mostly I just deal with all flats and everything else to me is sharps. Makes it a lot easier. Okay, I think I covered everything on my first page. Yeah, I did. Wow, that's pretty impressive, and hopefully you can see it. And like I said, this video is going to go on forever. I've covered page 1. I spent hours writing this stuff out because I really want somebody to learn from this. If I had this, it would have helped me out a lot. All right. But I didn't, so I had to learn. There is no, you'll notice that there are sharps or flats between a lot of these notes. There is no sharp. Choking already. There's no note between E and F. There's no sharp. I'm going to have to get some water in a minute. See, I knew that I should have got the cup of water, gotten the glass of water before I started my video, but I didn't. So good thing that I'm doing this right by the fridge. And if I was cool, I would edit this stuff out. But do you think I care? Obviously not. I just want somebody to learn. Okay. Back to my notes. There are no sharps or flats between E and F, and A and B and C. Hopefully I said B and C before. And when I was starting guitar, everybody explained this whole thing to me, and I went, what in the world are you talking about? I don't understand what you're talking about. Okay. Now, let's get to the holes. Yeah, let me get to the holes and halves, because that's where what I'm going to do, I'm going to probably do a few videos, as I said. I'm going to explain how this whole thing works, how you've got this crazy scale, and how to come up, the reason I'm doing this, once you understand this, you can figure out what the notes are in different keys. Now, when I first learned how to play guitar, I learned how to play, like everybody else, in the key of C. And I said to myself, I'm sticking with C. I'm not going past the 5th fret. I don't want to learn bar chords. Then I started learning bar chords. I got up to the 5th fret, and I said, that's it. I'm not going to go past that. Finally, I started messing around with more bar chords, and I realized how to do this stuff and how to transpose, how to come up with these notes in the different keys. And pretty soon, I wanted to learn how to do the fretting in the other, above the 5th fret, because it sounds so neat. And you can't do, well, maybe you can, I don't know. Once you learn how to bar a lot of these notes, you just go up and down the fretboard, and it's so easy to play stuff, and it sounds incredible. And at least for me, I started saying, I totally cannot stand the key of C. I hate it now. All right, let me see if I can come up with a different marker. I don't know if it's going to show up. But let's try this now. All right, so as I was telling you, there are half notes and half whole spacing, very confusing. Let me show you what's going on here. Here's a C, so let's say that this is between C and D. That's what I want to do. Between C and D, this is the key of C. Between C and D is a whole note. That makes no sense to you. Don't worry, it doesn't matter. Between D and E is a whole note. These are all the notes in the key of C. When you start getting out of the key of C, you've got half notes and whole notes, and it gets really tricky. And that's what this video is all about. But I think it's going to make sense to you. Hopefully I can explain this so it makes sense to you. And that's why this is going to go on for probably an hour or longer. Okay, all you got to do is know between this note and this note and this note and this note, it's a whole step. And they'll say whole, or they'll do a W. Now, look at this, where you've got whole steps. This is where it makes sense. This is whole steps. These are whole steps. So if you've got between C and D as a whole step, that means that between C, wow, this is even making sense to me. I like it. Between C and C sharp is a half step. See that? Half step. Half step. Half step. Between D and D and a D sharp, between D and E, half step. Between E, now this is where it gets very tricky. Remember, I said I didn't understand any of this. It makes so much sense now. There is no E sharp. There's no F flat. And this is the whole idea of the halves and the wholes. But this is a half, a half, a half. I don't know why people don't explain this like this. At least to me it makes a lot of sense. Maybe to the people listening, between C and B and C, there's no B sharp and there's no C flat. There's a half in there. If they'd explain this, it would make so much sense. Okay, now this is the whole thing that it just starts to come together now. If you look at this, whole, 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 but if you're looking with the sharps and flats, you've got half, 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 half. But if, let's just, let me give you the pattern for majors. This will make a lot more sense. Whole, whole, half. That's the major. Whole, 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 half. And now this is going to start to make sense in a minute. Let me check my notes and see if I want to screw you people up or where I'm at. Okay. Wow, I've gone all the way through like 3 pages already. Okay, once you understand, yeah, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Once you understand how to use this, you understand the major chord pattern of whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. And I know you're going, what the hell is this guy talking about? I have absolutely no idea. Okay, the key of C, as we just did, is whole. If you'd start off with C, which is your keys, C, you would look at this thing and what's the next whole? This is a half from C to C sharp, so your next note it would be D. And then you would do another whole. And then since there is no E sharp, half. And then from half, this is going to screw you up? Yeah, whole, whole, half. So that, and then from F to G is whole. And from G to A is a whole. And then from A, you got that A sharp in the beat, that's a whole. And then you have a half. You're back to C, which means you've completed the key. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Those are all the notes in the key of C. All right. I want to, gosh, I just have all these examples down here. All this stuff that's really confusing. But let's do the key of E. If you can understand this part, and I'm going to show you the key of E. If you can understand this and you can do it in another key, you can do it in all the keys. And that's the important thing, to be able to do this. Once you understand it, I'll show you how to do it without screwing with all this stuff. And let's start off with E. I love the key of E. Now we have to go with the pattern whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to finish recording this thing and then break up the video and then make another one so that I don't have a really long video. Okay, so we have the key of E. Now this is where it starts. I know you can, if you want to redo this all over again and start your list with E, F, G, and you can do that, but you don't need to. So now, since you're starting with E, this is very cool, understand this. You've got to do the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half pattern. This will make sense. So what is the whole after E? Well, if you go between E and F, that's only a half, so that's not what you want. The next note in the pattern is a whole, so you want to go E to F is half, and then F to F sharp is another half, which equals a whole. So your second note in the key of E is E, F, F sharp. If you understand this, wow, how I wish people had explained this to me when I was trying to learn this thing. Okay, so we've got the second note, E and F. Now let's go, F sharp. Now let's go to F sharp, and we've got to do another whole. Let's do this. Let's put a hole here so it makes sense, just like I did with the C. Key of C. Okay, so we're at F sharp, and we need to do another whole. So what's the next over? From F sharp to G is a half. Another half is G sharp. So the next note in the key of E is G sharp. Pretty neat, huh? Let's make sure it's not leaking on my door. Nope, we're still doing good. Okay, we're making major progress here. G sharp. Let's put a hole over here. Okay, we've done whole, whole. The next one we need to do is a half. So we're at G sharp. What is the next key in, what's the next note in the key of E? Well, if you're a G sharp and you have to do a half, you go over half. Your next note in the key of E is A, because from G sharp to A is a half. This is working out really good. I'm very happy with this thing. Okay, so now we have half. If you can understand this, you will be doing really good with music theory. And with this, I was wondering, why the hell do I need it? Well, you really don't need it. You can just look on the internet, or you can print up the charts, and you know all the notes that are in the keys, and you'll never need this. You will really never need it. It's nice to know some of it. It starts to make sense. It makes things a little easier for you, but you'll never need it. So we've done whole, whole, half. Now we have to do another whole. So if we're at A, half over is A sharp. Next one is B. So the next note in the key of E is B. And that is a whole. And then we're at B, we have to do another whole, because remember, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, whole, 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 half. So if we're at B, and we have to do another whole, from B to C is a half. So let's go over to here. We're over to here, and we have to do another another half. So that takes us to C sharp. And that is a whole. Really hard to write on a front door doing this. The next one over, we're at C sharp, and we have to do another whole. So from C to D is a half. From D to D sharp is another half. So the next note in the key is D sharp. So we have whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, whole, 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 and we have to do another half. So we're at D sharp, and the next thing over is an E. That's half. Why they don't do this, they just do a bunch of W's and H's, and nobody ever does the half in here for all of it. If they did the half, 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 it would start to make sense to people. So a D sharp and half over is E. And what does that tell us? We've completed it. The key notes in the key of E, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, and we already repeated the E. So if you understand how to do this, then you understand how to figure out the notes to everything. Let me see, I'm reading my notes. Sorry, I know that's not the right thing to do. All right, we've accomplished a lot. I'm going to do one more example because I think it will help. Hopefully it will help you. And then I'm going to swap out papers. All right, let's do the key of, what has a lot of sharps in it? G, let's see, G, C, D. Let's do F. And that's going to be the last one. Does that have a lot of sharps? I should do B. Let's do B, because that will start messing with the halves, because we're B, we got the half. All right, we have to do again the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Let's start at B. God, I wish that I had the, well, we could put a B over here, but it doesn't matter. We're at B, and we need to do a whole. So from B over to C is a half. Let's go back over here. So we're over here, and we needed to do one more half, so that takes us to C sharp. So the first whole is C sharp. Whole, that's between B and C sharp. B to C is a half, C to C sharp is a half, so that's your whole. So that's your first whole. You're at C sharp, and you have to do another whole. So half and half takes you to D sharp. That's the next note in the key of B. Whole, whole. So we're at D sharp, and now we have to do a half, and a half over is E, because remember, there are no notes between E and F. There's no E sharp and B and C. That's why it's a half step. I guess they call it a step. Okay, who really cares? So we've got the whole, half. And now we've got to do another whole. We're at E. From E to F is a half, and from F to F sharp is a half. So the next note giving us our whole step is whole, half, whole. We're at F sharp. Now when we're at F sharp, we have to do another whole. So that's G is a half, and another half is G sharp. Next note in the key is G sharp. At G sharp, we need to, okay, what do we have? Whole, whole. So we have whole, half, whole. We have to do another whole, so we're at G sharp. Another whole, A is half, A sharp is another half. Next note is A sharp. And that's your whole, and your last one has to be a half because whole, 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 half, whole, 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 half. So if you're at A sharp and you do a half, takes you over to B. What do we start with? B, the key of B. If you understand this, this is the key of B, the key of E, the key of C. Now, as I said, you can get all this stuff on the internet. You can just go on the internet, look up all the notes. I'm going to show you a much easier way that takes seconds to do instead of doing this. But once you understand this, you start to understand why you're doing your notes and what this whole thing about whole steps, half steps, that everybody wants you to learn, that I didn't know it for a long, long time. And it really made no sense to me, and I was able to play. I know people that have played for many, many years, and they don't know any of this stuff, and they never will learn it because they don't care about it and they don't need it. But if you understand this, you are way ahead of the game in understanding how to figure out what the notes in each key are. And when you learn the notes in each key, right now we just have all these notes, but when you learn, like, you get C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, but there's A minor, E minor, D minor, C sharp minor, F sharp. You're going to learn how to figure out what notes to play in a key so that it sounds right. Because if you played all these notes in a song in the key of C, it wouldn't sound right because you can't play some of these notes. They just don't sound right in each key. But if you play them in other keys, they would sound right. All right, I think I'm going to shut off the video now. I'm going to go to my next video in a minute. I'm halfway down the page, and it's getting hard to read it and hard to write. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and it made some sense to you. And if you appreciate my videos, I don't really care if you subscribe. I don't care if you do the likes. Do what you want. Leave comments if you want. If you hate the video, tell me I suck. If you like the video and you learned something, that's good. You can also watch some of my videos where I started guitar, where I first did my first guitar video on there, and see how I progressed from not knowing what I'm doing to still not knowing what I'm doing 2.5 years later. All right, so that's my first music theory tutorial. I've done a couple others that really made no sense because I scribbled them out on a whiteboard, and it was hard to understand and hard to see because I had just learned it myself. So here we go. I'm going to press the stop button.